think you need the mic.
I think there are a few questions.
I think I'm next, Marshall.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh.
So if there's a scout looking for these deals, for these properties, and going in as a wholesaler, as an investor, you're going to have a different conversation than I'm going to have as a realtor, right?
Yep.
So the seller can be motivated in various ways, and of course it depends on how good we are at what we do as to if they want you or they want me. And I'm wondering, in your experience, and first of all, I really appreciate you guys being here, and I appreciate Samson having you here. This is very enlightening. In your experience, if you don't have any motivation, or if you don't have any real convincing power to have them do it your way, what may be the reasons that a seller who's not talked to you or talked to me before, that what would be a reason that they don't want, other than paying a commission, which they're going to pay anyway, why would they want to not have the maximum exposure they can have by going in the MLS?
So that's a excellent question. Usually people, they will sign up with me because of my jokes. That's sort of number one. They love that. We'll take less money. We like his jokes. No, it goes to sort of what we were saying at the beginning, right? There is this huge chunk of people, and it may not be super visible for agents, because when you sort of are talking to somebody wearing your agent cap, whether on the phone or in person, a lot of folks are going to be sort of more inclined to, hear what you have to say. Yes, that sounds good, blah, blah, blah. But, they may not tell you to your face, I really want less money, right? Because that's kind of a weird thing to tell an agent, right? But I pretty much, and I would probably disagree a little bit with the premise of the question. I think it matters certainly how good you are at sitting down and talking to people as to whether or not you're going to get the business. But I do think it's pretty hard to, I think most people are going to kind of do what they're going to do, whether list or not list. So when I'm going out and meeting with somebody, I'm not trying to convince them not to list the property. In fact, I'm trying to convince them that make sure that they are well aware of their option to get more money, hire an agent. This is a path that you can take which will inevitably yield more proceeds to you. Maybe a few more hoops, might take a little longer, but it's absolutely a path to more dollars. So I am never sort of trying to convince somebody not to list, and sort of the opposite. What I am doing is competing against other people who are offering the same service that I'm offering. But the reason that people sell to us is, there's kind of a handful of reasons. Number one, the house needs a fair amount of work, and they just feel like it's not going to do well on the MLS. That's just sort of their mindset. They don't want pictures of their house on the MLS. They don't want a lot of people coming through the house. They want to leave all their stuff behind. It's their grandmother's house. They live in California, or maybe they live 2 hours away, and they don't really want to clean everything out of the house, and their grandmother has been saving marbles for the last 50 years. Maybe they just don't like the idea of paying commissions, and they're sort of willing to, cut off their nose to spite their face, right? Which happens a lot.
We had a lady in Arlington we bought a house from earlier this year. She was a former real estate agent, no longer practicing. We suggested she list the property. I think she told you she would die before she would list the property.
Yeah, she was like, it was hard. I wasn't really sure how to respond to that, but
we don't always get the reasons from
extreme.
People, but they're just
people are like, I know, but inevitably they're like, I know I could get more. I don't want to. I don't want to pay commissions. I don't want to pay closing costs. I just don't want to deal with it. Or it's a timing thing, right? Like they're moving and they don't want to deal with like concurrent settlements and trying to sell their house and buy another house, or sell and marry up the timing. And they just want, because we'll give people like a post-closing occupancy for free. We'll make it very easy in terms of their timing. So they can just focus on whatever they're going to do, where they're going to go, and we'll close whenever they're ready, right? We don't have to, they're not under the gun to close when a buyer necessarily, they can dictate to us what they want. And that can be a moving target for closing. So it's.
I also think in some instances where it's a pretty rough property, it's inevitably going to an investor. What they might get on the market and paying commissions and closing costs is not all that different from what they might get if we just buy it. So I think some people sort of do that in their head and think like, well, my house is worth 300. You know, I think developers are going to pay 300 for this property, whether I list it or not. And so they just.
Yes.
I just want to ask you about how do you deal with the situation if you got the property under contract and you send it to your list and you have multiple offers. So how do you deal with that?
Right. That's usually what happens. So we have a disposition team within the company that is in charge of putting together advertising out the properties, fielding the offers, keeping track of everything, monitoring proof of funds for each offer, et cetera. So we generally have multiple offers, whether it's 3, in some cases sometimes we'll have 30, it can be a lot. And we will just go through and ask for highest and best eventually and try and, get the best possible offer, get the most money out of it where it's an offer that we feel comfortable with the person, the proof of funds. So
you always come back and ask for highest?
That's our process.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sure.
Thank you. So when you're selling, buying a property, do the sellers think, or are they clear on the fact that they're signing a purchase contract, but that you are going to sell this purchase contract, or do they think that you were buying their house?
So that's a great question too, and that goes to our next slide. And Dave warned us about this, but yes, I always tell them, and I think that sort of goes to there are a lot of wholesalers out there that are not great, right? I mean, to put it bluntly, and that there are plenty of sellers that have had not great experiences working with various investors. We try to sort of be the opposite of that. So on that particular, our sort of general motto is transparency with the seller, but that's a really big one, right? That's where a lot of wholesalers, I think, sort of fall into that pitfall of just sort of trying to pretend like they're going to buy it because they don't know how to explain it. We don't do that. We're going to tell them what we're doing. We explain what we're going to do, what the process is, how it's going to happen, what the HUD's going to look like, what is an assignment fee. We tell them everything. And we do that in the initial meeting. No surprises. Not the way to do business, not the way to get referrals. But more importantly, we just don't want to be misleading anybody, and we want to do it the right way. And we find that is ultimately a better way to do business, both in terms of effective sales, but also just being able to sleep at night and make sure that we're sort of treating everybody fairly. I think people generally appreciate giving them the good, the bad, the ugly, and so we always do that in the initial meeting to make sure that there's no confusion.
I'd just like to say that's the only way to do it, okay? And that is, on their end, it's one of the reasons we like these gentlemen and their operation is because they approach it so ethically, and that's the way you succeed. Keep those reviews up. I think that it's important to remember what they said earlier, that one of the easiest things for you to do if you don't want to become expert at wholesaling as an individual yourself, and that's a whole other topic. This class can't cover everything, and it's not gonna. There's gonna be some follow-ons, but some of you are gonna have some questions of me, Dave, on what is Samson Company policies for you all to be wholesaling yourself, and is that always required to be done under the company umbrella? Do you write those offers through Samson, even though you're not looking for a commission from the seller, but you're looking to assign that contract for any assignment fee you can? All of these issues come into play, but it's a great opportunity to be aware of, as they described. You can bring them in to close the deal because this is what they do every day. They're very, very effective at it. And to ensure yourself a 50% split of the assignment fee, which could be well in excess of a commission you might earn anyway, right? But if you are, along the lines of this ethics, if you are ever involved as a wholesaler yourself, obviously license law requires you to disclose that you're a licensee. I do have some canned language on pretty much these bullet points that are on the screen, where absolutely you have to disclose to the seller that you're a profit-minded investor, you are a licensee, you're a profit-minded investor, and you will be intending to sell this contract or assign the contract to a third-party buyer for any profit you choose, and that title will convey from the seller directly to the end buyer, investor buyer typically. So, yeah, the ethics of this is really, really important, and as you all know, there's pretty much no standardized forms that the realtor associations provide for us realtors for wholesaling. That's by design. It's because most brokerage firms and their legal counsel don't want them to be out there. That's what attorneys are for. But it is legal. It is completely legal to contract for a property and assign that contract. Cardinal title is a big component of this. We talked to Dan and Kevin about any of the deals that you refer in on the 50-50 split or whatever. We're going to work to get those to Cardinal Title. And Cardinal Title will close assignment deals in Virginia, Maryland, and D.C. The one fundamental requirement is they are going to require that the assignment fee be clearly identified on the ALTA or the HUD-1. If it's a cash deal, HUD-1, I guess. So sometimes you'll see wholesalers who think that they can not disclose ever what their assignment fee is, either that the seller's never going to see it or that the end buyer investor's not going to see it, and that's just not right. That's not the way to do it. If you can't assign a contract for enough profit for yourself, then don't do it, and or it's not going to work. If you can't find an investor to pay a certain amount or to pay that assignment fee, then and have it disclosed to all parties, then it's not worth getting engaged in. It's a can of worms. Sorry for that rant.
No.
Just wanted to
No, thanks.
Said it. Yeah,
Perfect.
perfect.